Hello and welcome back to the Untypical podcaster. Great to have you with me. Today I'm going to kick off with probably one of the most important things that most new podcasters coming into podcasting will be thinking about. There's usually two things, I think. One of them is the name of your podcast, and the other thing is the really, really iconic symbol of podcasting, the mighty mic. So the microphone is often the thing that we all go off to get, being the most important thing that we need to have as a podcaster. Well, let me tell you, when I started my podcasting, where did I start with my mic? You might have a guess. Thinking the Untypical podcaster, surely she's gone out and got herself a really great mic to start her podcasting career. Think again. I kicked off my podcast using the rubbishy, crappy old mic in my very, very old laptop, alongside the most awful, grainy camera inbuilt to my really, really, really old laptop. And that's how I started my podcasting. So my first episode that went out, no mic, no decent camera, I just pressed record. And you know what? I was thinking about it. If I went back, would I go and get a mic? And I think at that point, I was so confused by what I needed. How much did I need to spend? And people were saying, spend as much as you can. Some people were saying, just use a little bit. Some people were saying, push yourself to get the very best mic you can. Others were going, no, just run of the mill ones. And I was so confused by it all that I think if I had waited, I may never actually have pressed record. So I think what I did in the end was I just kicked off. I just went for it without the mic. Anyway, it really quickly became apparent that if I was going to take my podcasting slightly seriously, and this wasn't just a flash in the pan and just we'll just see what happens when I press record, I probably did need to get myself a mic. Now, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail about the different makes of mic and all the kind of technical stuff behind it, because if you're here, you'll probably remember that is not my forte. You want the in-depth technical jargon and knowledge about the mics. We can find some links for that, but I'm not going to be your gal for that. But what I will talk about is how you can get started. What are the basic things you need to think about with a mic? And they're silly little things. Well, silly little things that I didn't do. So maybe not that silly. That nobody told me. I didn't know what to do. So I made a lot of mistakes. And I often think as a podcaster, you kind of have to get good at making mistakes because you're never going to know it all when you start. No one ever does. You're never going to make the perfect podcast. People like Stephen Bartlett or Mel Robbins may say that actually now they have a perfect podcast. If you've got huge budgets, a whole team behind you, producers and editors, yeah, probably your podcast is heading towards being pretty perfect. But even when I listen to Stephen Bartlett talk, he talks about being a perfectionist and wanting things to be even better. So I could probably even guarantee that not even he thinks his podcast is perfect. There are going to be times when it all goes a bit pear-shaped, when things don't go quite according to plan. And we learn, I think, as podcasters to think on our feet, sometimes style it out. You've always got edit. You can always delete it out. But actually, I leave a lot of my stuff in that doesn't go well because it shows real life. It shows me as a real person, and it shows that I don't get it perfect. And let's face it, we all love it when someone gets it wrong. So I tend to leave it in. So I started my days with this really rubbishy, grainy old mic. And it was terrible. The audio was awful. So I quickly knew I had to get it. So you'd think I would go out, do loads of research, go buy myself a really great mic. I went and stole my son's. If you've got kids, it's what it's for, isn't it? I've got a son and he streams. So I thought, I'm going to use that mic. I'm going to steal it and have that. So we then entered into this kind of to and fro with him forever downstairs shouting, Mum, where's my mic? And me kind of going, can I have it for just 10 more minutes? Or me going, where's your mic? And him going, I'm streaming. And we went backwards and forwards like this for many, many months, the poor kid. Just of note, the mic he had was a Blue Yeti mic. I know some people think well of them, other people don't. It was a kind of mid-range, I think we'd spent about 100, 120 quid on his mic. Might have been more. So it was a kind of mid-range mic. It was okay for the job that it needed to do and was doing, I thought would be doing a grand job. So it came to editing and I was starting to think, my audio still sounds terrible. And I'm on with guests that are using their computer mic. So why does my mic sound so terrible? Just always thought, you get a mic, plug it in, away you go, off you go. Instructions, no thanks. I don't really do instructions as a dyslexic. I find them difficult. I don't like the reading. Yeah, if I can get away with it, I don't read instructions. Well, turns out you probably need to read your instructions about your mic. So what I found out was, the kind of typical, you see them on the TV with their mics and they're chatting like this. And I thought that's obviously how it needs to be. So I positioned my mic. If I lift it up, I'm probably going to send all my audio a bit off. But I positioned my mic, not straight up in the air like this, but directly at me like this. Well, it's back to where it should be. Turns out I've got a side address mic. Turns out most podcasting mics are side address mics. So when you talk to the top of them, you're losing some of the sound. I'm sure there's a technical jargon to it. I don't know what it is. Anyway, once I realised this and positioned my mic in the correct position, my audio improved. So, little note to remember, when you're getting a mic, it's probably a side address mic if you've got one. So just check, because I understand I've done a bit of a search. Sometimes they're not, but most of the time I think they are side address mics. In which case, make sure you're not talking to the top of it and make sure it's almost pointing straight up at the air, in the air. Some people like to have it off at a slight angle, but basically up and not pointed directly at you, which is what I was doing. Anyway, so that was tip number one. The other thing that's probably worth thinking about, and again, this took me many, many months before I bought one, was to get yourself a pop filter. It's kind of like the little thing that goes in front of your mic. It's like a mesh. Or sometimes you see it's like a foam cover that goes over the top of the mic. And both times that's for just clarity of sound and stops the pop that sometimes you'll get when you talk too close or too near to the mic. So those can be a really good thing to put in as well. If I'm honest, I didn't really understand it or hear the difference until I put one in. I now see why I needed one, but I have spent a long time without one. And they're quite cheap to get, so they're often probably quite a good thing to add to your mic purchase. So the other thing to think about with your mic, and it's a really simple thing that people that, maybe people will think, really? You needed someone to tell you this? Well, I reckon that if I needed somebody to tell me it, maybe somebody else out there might feel the same. So it turns out that if you have your mic halfway across the desk, your audio is not going to be great. So I use my desk for other things. I don't just podcast. I actually do other things involving work. So I often push my mic out of the way over into the side. And for some reason, seem to have a block on bringing the mic actually even within my vicinity, which has a bit of an impact on my recordings and my audio. Sometimes I can remember mid-podcast and then I'm trying to slide the mic across the table towards me, and you'll hear me probably getting louder and louder and louder, and me having to now try in the background when I'm editing to make the beginning bit louder, the bit when the mic's actually near my face a bit quieter. It's just a nightmare. So I now write myself notes. There are sticky notes, and that's probably a really good tip that I'd have for anyone starting off podcasting. Write yourself reminders. One is press record. One is make sure the button on your mic is turned on. I made that mistake recording this video. I started and wrote and talked for 8 minutes before I realised that the button on my mic wasn't turned on. So I should have written myself a reminder for that. And I hadn't. And it's little things like, making sure the mic's near you everything's set to record, all those kind of things. I have Post-it notes everywhere. So you might be one of those people, if you forget lots of things, my tip is Post-it note it. So you've got like a little checklist that you go through before you start your podcast. So positioning apparently is really great. And actually what they say is that really the mic should be about a fist width away from your mouth. Now, you get an extra bonus point if you can see what's missing in my picture here. You got it. My mic is further than it should be away from my mouth. So that's the other thing, is when you get these mics on the stands, is they're often quite difficult to get in the right place for them. So you'll hear probably the change in my voice as I come closer to it, and then when I'm further away from it. But what's really difficult is when you're sat at a desk to do that, is that I either have to drop my chair so low you probably won't even see me and I can't see the mic, or I have to get a load of books and balance balance my mic up so that it's now closer to my face. So I've actually made a decision that I am going to get myself a boom arm. Again, they're not very expensive. And that means it would be much easier to position the mic in a place where it's closer to my face and closer to my mouth, which then again will improve on my quality of sound recording. So I said they were going to be short. This is going to be it. This one was just about mics, and it was just little tips and techniques about using your mics when you start. But my big advice is don't wait. If you've got the desire to get a podcast out there, and a bit like me, you were overwhelmed by the amount of choice of mic, you've done research into everything about this person saying that, the next person saying another thing. One person recommends Blue Yeti, another one hates them, another one recommends this, another one doesn't like them. Spend this much, don't spend this. My advice is just get started. And if that means nicking your son's mic from his streaming, go nick that. If that means using the mic that's built into your laptop, start there. But what you'll start to do is work out, okay, this is what I need. This is how invested I am in this. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that those little tips about mics might help just to get you started. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button below. So make sure that you keep up to date with all the little videos. And if there's something in particular you'd really like me to cover, then just let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. And if you've got a bit of a tip about using mics, something that you made a mistake about maybe first time when you were that newbie as a podcaster, or if you've got a question about your mic, pop it in the comments. I might not be able to answer, but I bet you there'll be loads of people that are reading. They might be able to answer. And if I can, I'll definitely help you out. Anyway, take care and see you soon. Bye.